The conference room fell silent when Ambassador Hyrin Cho made the announcement. Princess Liara of Velthari stood frozen, her elegant silver skin seeming to pale even further. Her large violet eyes narrowed as she stared at the human woman across the table. "You cannot be serious," Liara said, her voice sharp and cold. "A human? As my guardian?" Hyrin kept her professional smile in place, though her hands tightened slightly on the datapad she held. "Princess, the Coalition security protocols are very clear. For your diplomatic tour, you need a neutral guardian. Humans are currently neutral in all Coalition political matters." "Neutral?" Liara's laugh was bitter. "Humans are barbarians. You have been part of the Coalition for only 15 years. 15? My people have been leaders for over 10,000 years. I will not trust my life to some primitive creature who barely understands civilized society." The words stung, but Hyrin had dealt with worse in her years as an ambassador. "Princess Liara, I understand your concerns. However, the decision has been made by the Coalition Council. Your guardian will be Taehyun Kang, one of our best security specialists." "Then unmake the decision," Liara demanded. "I refuse." The door to the conference room opened. A man walked in and Liara turned to look at him with obvious disgust. Taehyun Kang was tall for a human, with dark hair cut short and a face that looked like it had seen too many fights. A long scar ran down his left cheek and his dark eyes were tired. He wore the standard gray uniform of the Diplomatic Protection Unit, and he moved with the careful precision of a soldier. He stopped a few feet from the table and gave a small bow. "Ambassador Cho, Princess Liara." His voice was flat and professional, but Liara could hear something else underneath. He did not want to be here either. "Specialist Kang," Hyrin said, relief obvious in her voice. "Thank you for coming. I was just explaining to Princess Liara that you will be her guardian for the diplomatic tour." Taehyun looked at Liara, then back at the ambassador. "With respect, Ambassador, I think the princess has a point." Everyone in the room seemed to stop breathing. Hyrin's eyes went wide. "Excuse me?" "I said she has a point," Taehyun repeated, still in that same flat tone. "Babysitting a spoiled princess who thinks she's better than everyone else is not what I signed up for. I protect people who actually want to be protected. People who actually need protection." Liara felt her anger flare hot and bright. How dare this human speak to her like that? But before she could respond, Taehyun turned and started walking toward the door. "Specialist Kang." Hyrin's voice cracked like a whip. "You will follow your orders." Taehyun stopped but did not turn around. "Yes, Ambassador." "Of course, Ambassador." "And Princess Liara," Hyrin continued, her diplomatic mask slipping to show real frustration underneath. "The decision stands. Specialist Kang is your guardian. If you have complaints, you may file them with the Coalition Council. But the tour begins in 3 days and he will be with you." The meeting ended badly. Within hours, video of the confrontation had leaked onto the Coalition networks. Billions of beings across dozens of worlds watched the proud Velthari princess and the scarred human guardian insult each other. Some found it funny. Others found it worrying. The human Velthari alliance was important, and this was not a good start. 3 days later, Liara stood in the docking bay of the diplomatic vessel that would take her on her tour. Her handmaiden, a quiet human woman named Nari, helped adjust the flowing robes that marked Liara as Velthari royalty. Around them, servants loaded supplies and equipment. "He is here, Your Highness," Nari said softly, gesturing across the bay. Liara looked and saw Taehyun talking with the ship's captain. He had a large pack on his back and another bag in his hand. He looked like a soldier heading to war, not a guardian on a diplomatic mission. When he saw Liara looking at him, he walked over. He stopped exactly 10 feet away and gave another small bow. "Princess. Human," she replied coldly. His jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing. "Let me be very clear about how this will work," Liara continued. "You will stay at least 10 paces behind me at all times. You will not speak unless I ask you a direct question. You will not interfere with any of my activities. You will not embarrass me or my people with your human habits." "Understood," Taehyun said. His face showed nothing. "I have already sent a formal request to the Coalition Council for a replacement guardian. With luck, you will be gone within a week." "Looking forward to it, Princess." The tour began on Nexus Prime, a massive space station that served as a neutral trading hub. It was beautiful, with levels upon levels of shops, gardens, and meeting halls. Representatives from dozens of species walked the wide corridors, doing business and building relationships. Liara was perfect in her role. She smiled and spoke with grace. She attended meetings and dinners. She gave speeches about unity and cooperation. And through it all, Taehyun walked exactly 10 paces behind her, silent as a shadow. The Velthari guards who traveled with Liara made no secret of what they thought about the human. They mocked him in their own language, not knowing that Taehyun had studied Velthari during his military training. He understood every word. He said nothing. Captain Thelmore, the leader of Liara's personal guard, was the worst. He was tall and proud, with the silver skin and violet eyes of all Velthari. He treated Taehyun like a servant, ordering him around and laughing when the human followed orders without complaint. But Liara noticed things that others did not. She saw how Taehyun checked every room before she entered it. She saw how he positioned himself near exits and kept his back to walls. She saw how his eyes constantly moved, watching everyone and everything. He barely slept. He barely ate. He was always alert, always ready. On the third day during a formal reception, a service drone malfunctioned. It spun wildly through the air, heading straight for the transport platform where Liara stood greeting guests. The Velthari guards shouted and reached for their weapons, but they were too slow. Taehyun was not too slow. He crossed the 10 paces between them in 2 seconds and slammed into Liara, knocking her aside as the drone crashed into the platform with a screech of metal. They landed hard on the ground, Taehyun's body covering hers protectively. For a moment there was chaos. Then Taehyun was on his feet, pulling Liara up with surprising gentleness. "Are you hurt, princess?" Liara's heart pounded. She could still feel the heat from the drone's engines. If it had hit her... "No, I am fine." Taehyun was already examining the wreckage of the drone. The Velthari guard surrounded Liara, apologizing for not reacting faster. But Liara watched the human guardian pull pieces of the drone apart with his scarred hands. "It was tampered with," Taehyun announced, holding up a burnt circuit board. "Someone reprogrammed it to target this platform." "Nonsense," Captain Thelmore snapped. "It was simply a malfunction. These drones are old." "This was deliberate," Taehyun insisted. "Someone tried to kill the princess." Liara felt cold fear in her stomach, but she pushed it down. "Captain Thelmore is correct. It was merely an accident. You are seeing threats that do not exist, human. Perhaps you are trying to make yourself seem more useful than you are." Taehyun looked at her with those tired, dark eyes. For a moment she thought he might argue. Instead he simply bowed. "As you say, princess." He walked away and Liara watched him go. Something in her chest felt tight and uncomfortable. She told herself it was just the shock of the accident. Nothing more. But that night, unable to sleep, she walked past Taehyun's quarters and heard him speaking quietly to someone on a communication device. "Daewon, I need you to look into something for me. Someone just tried to kill the princess, and I think this is only the beginning." The diplomatic tour continued, and tensions grew with each passing day. Taehyun had sent the drone wreckage to his contact, a man named Daewon Lee who worked in human intelligence. Daewon had confirmed what Taehyun already knew. The drone had been deliberately reprogrammed. Someone wanted Princess Liara dead. Taehyun tried to warn the Velthari guards. He tried to convince Captain Thelmore to increase security, but the captain only laughed at him. "Humans see danger everywhere because you are a violent species," Thelmore said, his violet eyes full of contempt. "We Velthari have maintained peace for thousands of years. We do not jump at shadows like frightened children." Taehyun said nothing. He had learned that arguing was useless. Instead, he did his job. He mapped every location they visited. He memorized escape routes. He identified potential threats and kept detailed notes. If the Velthari would not protect their princess properly, then he would do it alone. Liara noticed his constant vigilance, though she tried to ignore it. She told herself the human was paranoid and foolish, but sometimes late at night she wondered if he might be right. The tour moved to the next location, a beautiful station called Sanctuary. It was an ancient place built thousands of years ago as a symbol of peace. Here Liara would give one of her most important speeches at the Coalition Peace Ceremony. Representatives from all 12 Coalition species would attend. Ambassador Sung-Ho Yoon, a senior human diplomat, arrived at Sanctuary to oversee the human delegation. He called Taehyun to a private meeting. "I have heard reports about your behavior, Sung-ho said, his aged face stern. You are making accusations. You are frightening people with talk of assassination attempts. With respect, Ambassador, someone is trying to kill Princess Liara. Taehyun replied. The evidence is clear. The evidence is inconclusive, Sung-ho corrected, and your aggressive approach is damaging human-Velthari relations. Do you understand how important this alliance is? One human causing an interstellar incident could undo years of careful diplomacy. Taehyun felt frustration burning in his chest, but he kept his voice level. My job is to protect the princess, not to worry about politics. Your job is whatever I tell you it is, Specialist, Sung-ho snapped. You will maintain a low profile during the ceremony. You will not cause any scenes. You will not embarrass the human delegation. Am I clear? Yes, Ambassador. Good, now get out. Taehyun left the meeting feeling hollow. He contacted Daewon again that night. I have more information, Daewon said, his voice distorted by the encryption. There is a group called the Purity Alliance. They are Velthari extremists who oppose Liara's progressive politics. She wants to give more power to younger species in the coalition. They see this as a threat to Velthari dominance. Are they dangerous? Taehyun asked. Very. And I found something else. Lord Vexiron, a noble in the Velthari court, has been meeting with suspicious individuals. He is Liara's cousin and third in line for the throne. Taehyun felt ice in his veins. If Liara dies before her coronation, Vexiron moves up in the succession, yes. I need proof. Something that will convince the Velthari guards to take this seriously. I am working on it. But Taehyun? Be careful. These people have resources and power. If they know you are investigating, you become a target too. The next day, Taehyun watched Lord Vexiron carefully. The noble was smooth and charming, always smiling, always helpful. He walked with Liara through the station, offering advice for her speech. To everyone else, he seemed like a loyal cousin. But Taehyun saw how Vexiron's eyes lingered on Liara. There was hunger there, ambition. Taehyun tried to follow Vexiron after a meeting, but Captain Thelmore blocked his path. What do you think you are doing, human? The captain demanded. My job, Taehyun replied. Your job is to stand quietly and look intimidating. Nothing more. Stop harassing Lord Vexiron with your paranoid suspicions. He is a respected noble, not some criminal for you to investigate. Someone is planning to kill the princess during the ceremony tomorrow, Taehyun said, keeping his voice calm. I believe Lord Vexiron is involved. Thelmore's face twisted with anger. You dare accuse a member of the royal family? Based on what? Your human instincts? He stepped closer, towering over Taehyun. I have had enough of you. After the ceremony, I will personally request your removal from this detail. You are a disgrace. Taehyun met his gaze without flinching. Do what you need to do, Captain. But let me increase security for tomorrow, just in case. No. You will stay out of the way and let the professionals handle security. Thelmore turned and walked away, leaving Taehyun standing alone in the corridor. That evening, Liara prepared for her speech in her quarters. Her handmaiden Nari helped her select the proper robes and jewelry. As Nari worked, Liara found herself talking, something she rarely did. Do you think I am making a mistake, Nari? Liara asked quietly. This speech tomorrow, I will be calling for equal partnership between all species. Many of my people will be angry. Nari smiled gently. You are doing what is right, Your Highness. Change is always difficult, but it is necessary. I just wish I felt more confident. Liara paused. The human guardian, Taehyun, what do you think of him? Nari's smile grew. I think he is very dedicated. He reminds me of the human soldiers who saved my colony during the Void Wars. You were in the Void Wars? Yes, Your Highness. My colony was attacked by raiders. We called for help, but everyone said we were too far away, too unimportant. Everyone except the humans. They sent a ship, even though it meant risking their own lives. The captain of that ship was very much like Specialist Kang, stubborn, reckless, some said. But he refused to abandon us. Liara felt something uncomfortable in her chest. What happened? The human ship was destroyed defending us. The captain and most of his crew died, but they held the raiders off long enough for coalition reinforcements to arrive. They saved 3,000 lives, including mine. Nari's eyes were distant with memory. Everyone called them foolish for taking such a risk, but I call them heroes. After Nari left, Liara sat alone with her thoughts. She thought about Taehyun's scarred face and tired eyes. She thought about how he walked 10 paces behind her without complaint, even though she treated him poorly. She thought about how he had thrown himself between her and the drone without hesitation. Perhaps she had been wrong about him. Perhaps she had been wrong about humans in general. The next morning, Sanctuary Station was filled with activity. Thousands of beings from across the coalition gathered for the peace ceremony. The Great Hall was magnificent with crystal pillars and floating platforms. Liara stood backstage reviewing her speech one final time. Taehyun appeared beside her as he always did. "Princess." "Yes?" She was surprised by how glad she was to see him. "Be careful today. Please." There was something in his voice. Real worry, real fear. Liara found herself wanting to comfort him, which was strange. "I will be fine," she said softly. "But thank you for caring." He looked startled as if he had not expected kindness from her. Then he bowed and stepped back to his usual position 10 paces away. The ceremony began. Liara walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. Thousands of eyes watched her. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "My fellow coalition members," she said, her voice strong and clear, "we gather today to celebrate peace. But true peace requires more than the absence of war. It requires understanding, respect, equality." She spoke about unity, about looking past old prejudices, about judging individuals by their actions rather than their species. As she spoke, she found her eyes drifting to Taehyun, standing at the edge of the hall, always watching, always alert. "We must move beyond the belief that some species are superior to others," she continued. "We must recognize that every being, from the oldest empire to the newest member, has value, has worth, has something to contribute." She realized with sudden clarity that she had been speaking about herself as much as about politics. She had judged Taehyun by his species, not by his character. She had refused to see his value because of her own prejudice. "I stand before you today to say that I was wrong," Liara said, the words coming from her heart now. "I have held beliefs that were unjust. I have treated others poorly because of fear and pride. But I have learned that true strength comes from admitting our mistakes and working to be better." As she spoke these words, looking at Taehyun, everything changed. The lights went out. Explosions shook the station. Screams filled the darkness, and Liara's carefully planned speech about peace and unity became nothing but ash and smoke. The darkness was total. Liara stood frozen on the stage, her heart racing. She could hear screams and the sound of weapons firing. Then emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in a terrible red glow. Armed figures in black combat armor poured into the hall from multiple entrances. They moved with military precision, cutting down anyone who resisted. Liara saw diplomats falling, saw guards trying to fight back and dying. The beautiful ceremony had become a massacre, to me. "Protect the princess." Captain Thelmore's voice rang out above the chaos. The Velthari royal guards rushed to form a protective circle around Liara. They raised their weapons and fired at the attackers, but the attackers seemed to know exactly where the guards would be, exactly what tactics they would use. They flanked the defensive position with ease. Thelmore fought bravely, his energy weapon cutting through the air. Then something hit him in the chest and he fell, his violet eyes going dark. Liara screamed. Suddenly, strong hands grabbed her from behind. She tried to fight, but a familiar voice spoke urgently in her ear. "It is me, Taehyun. We need to move now. My guards are dying because someone betrayed them. Someone told the attackers their positions, their tactics, everything. We cannot trust anyone." He pulled her toward the side of the stage. "We go through the maintenance corridor. I scouted it 3 days ago. It is our only chance." Liara wanted to argue, to demand they help the guards to do something, but bullets and energy blasts were hitting all around them. People she had known for years were dying, and Taehyun was right. They had to run. He led her behind the stage and through a narrow door marked "Maintenance Personnel Only." As soon as they were through, he sealed it behind them with his security codes. The sounds of battle became muffled. "This way," Taehyun said, pulling a small light from his belt. "Stay close." They ran through dark corridors filled with pipes and machinery. Liara's formal robes caught on metal edges and she stumbled. Taehyun caught her each time, his grip firm but gentle. Behind them, Liara heard the maintenance door explode. The attackers were following. "Faster," Taehyun urged. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Taehyun paused, checking a small device on his wrist. "This way." How do you know where to go? Liara gasped, her lungs burning. I memorized the station layout, and I placed supply caches at key points just in case. You did all this? Even though everyone told you not to? Especially because everyone told me not to. He gave her a grim smile. I lost people once because I listened to politicians who said everything was safe. I will not make that mistake again. They ran for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Finally, Taehyun pulled her into a small storage room. He sealed the door and activated some kind of jamming device. We should be safe here for a while, he said, breathing hard. They cannot track us through this jamming field. Liara slumped against a wall, her whole body shaking. Captain Thelmore, all those people, I know. Taehyun's voice was gentle. I am sorry. Who are those attackers? What do they want? They want you dead, Princess. He pulled out his communication device and cursed. No signal. They are jamming everything. But why? Why would anyone want to kill me? A new voice spoke from the darkness. Because you are a threat to the old ways, dear cousin. Liara's blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. Lord Vexiron stepped out from behind a stack of crates flanked by 4 armed soldiers. He looked calm and relaxed, as if he were attending a pleasant social gathering rather than a coup. Vexiron, Liara whispered. You did this? I did what was necessary, he replied smoothly. You are going to destroy everything our people have built. Equal partnership? Sharing power with lesser species? Unacceptable. Taehyun moved to stand between Liara and Vexiron, his hand going to the weapon at his hip. Ah, the loyal human guard, Vexiron said, smiling. You are more clever than I gave you credit for. I made sure your superiors ordered you to stand down. I thought that would be enough. But you kept investigating, kept preparing, troublesome. How did you find us? Taehyun demanded. I have had access to the station's security systems for months. Your jamming device is clever, but not clever enough. Vexiron's smile widened, but I am not unreasonable. I have a proposition for you, human. I am listening. Walk away. Take one of my escape ships and leave. I will even transfer enough credits to your account to live comfortably for the rest of your life. All you have to do is step aside and let you kill the princess. She is not your princess. She is not even your species. Why die for someone who openly despised you? Someone who refused to have you as her guardian? Someone who mocked you and treated you like a servant? Liara felt shame burn through her. Everything Vexiron said was true. She had treated Taehyun terribly. Taehyun was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice calm and certain. She is under my protection. That is all that matters, Vexiron sighed. How disappointingly predictable, very well. Kill them both. The soldiers raised their weapons. Taehyun moved faster than Liara thought possible. He grabbed her and dove behind a stack of metal containers as energy blasts lit up the small room. Sparks flew. Metal screamed, Can you shoot? Taehyun shouted over the noise, handing her a small pistol he pulled from his jacket. Yes. Basic training. Good. When I say now, we run for that door. Shoot anyone who tries to stop us. There are 4 of them. I know. His grin was fierce and wild. Now they burst from cover. Taehyun fired his weapon with brutal accuracy. 1 soldier went down. Then another. The 3rd soldier fired back and Taehyun grunted in pain but kept moving. Liara fired her pistol wildly, missing everything, but the noise made the soldiers duck. They crashed through the door and into another corridor. Behind them, Vexiron was shouting orders. Taehyun slammed his hand against a control panel and a heavy blast door began to slide shut. That will not hold them long, he said, pressing a hand to his side. When he pulled it away, it was covered in blood. You are hurt. I will live. Come on. They ran deeper into the station's maintenance levels. The corridors became narrower and darker. Strange sounds echoed around them. Water dripped. Machinery hummed. Liara had never been in places like this. As a princess, she had only seen the beautiful, polished parts of stations. Finally, Taehyun stopped in a small alcove. He was breathing hard and his face was pale. Blood stained his uniform. Let me see, Liara demanded. We do not have time. Let me see. Reluctantly, he lifted his jacket. A deep gash ran across his ribs where the energy blast had burned through his armor. It was bleeding badly. Liara felt panic rising. We need to get you to a medical facility. Cannot risk it. Vexiron controls the station. He pulled out a basic medical kit from a hidden pocket. I have this. His hands shook as he tried to apply a sealing bandage. Liara took the kit from him, I will do it. You have done enough. She worked as carefully as she could, cleaning the wound and applying the medical seal. Her hands shook, but she forced herself to stay calm. Tae-hyun bit back groans of pain, his jaw clenched tight. Why? Liara asked quietly as she worked. Why did you refuse Vexiron's offer? You could be safe right now. Rich, free. Tae-hyun looked at her with those tired dark eyes. Because I made a promise. When I became a guardian, I swore to protect those in my care. It does not matter if they like me. It does not matter if they want my protection. All that matters is keeping them safe. Even if it costs you everything? Even then, Liara finished bandaging his wound. I have been cruel to you. Unfair. I judged you because of what you are, not who you are. I am sorry. You were afraid, Tae-hyun said. I understand fear. We all make mistakes when we are afraid. What frightens you? Liara asked. He was quiet for a long moment. Failing again. I lost my entire squad in the Void Wars. We were protecting a colony and I knew something was wrong. I tried to warn the colonial governor, but he would not listen. He said I was being paranoid, seeing threats that did not exist. So I followed his orders. His voice went flat. My squad died because I listened to someone who thought he knew better. Because I did not trust my own judgment. That is why you prepared so carefully for this tour. Why you ignored everyone's orders to stand down. Yes, I would rather be called paranoid and wrong than watch more people die because I stayed quiet. A loud explosion echoed through the corridors. Vexiron's forces were getting closer. Tae-hyun's communication device suddenly crackled to life. A voice came through, distorted but recognizable. It was Day 1, Tae-hyun. Can you hear me? The whole delegation compromised. Extraction impossible. You are on your own. Repeat, on your own. Coalition forces coming, but hours away. Survive. Just survive. The device went dead. Tae-hyun and Liara looked at each other. They were trapped on a hostile station with enemies hunting them. No help was coming, and Tae-hyun was wounded. What do we do now? Liara asked. Tae-hyun pulled himself to his feet with a grimace. We survive together. Can you do that, princess? Liara stood as well, feeling something new inside her. Not fear, not pride. Something stronger. Yes. Together. They moved deeper into the darkness, and behind them, Vexiron's hunters closed in. They had been running for hours. Liara's feet hurt. Her elegant robes were torn and dirty, and she could barely breathe. But she kept moving because Tae-hyun kept moving, even though she could see the pain in every step he took. The maintenance tunnels were like a maze. Some areas were so narrow they had to squeeze through sideways. Other areas opened into huge chambers filled with humming machinery. Tae-hyun seemed to know exactly where to go, following some internal map that only he could see. Finally, he stopped at a sealed door marked with warning symbols. Here. Where is here? Liara asked. Emergency shelter. I found it while scouting the station. He entered a code into the door panel. It is designed for maintenance workers to hide during station emergencies. Sealed, supplied, hidden from most sensors. The door slid open, revealing a small room with basic beds, food storage, and a medical station. Tae-hyun stumbled inside and collapsed onto one of the beds. How bad is it? Liara asked, kneeling beside him. The wound is sealed, but I lost a lot of blood. I just need rest. But when Liara helped him remove his jacket, she saw that the makeshift bandage was soaked red. The wound had reopened during their running. The medical station, Liara said, looking around frantically. Can it help? Maybe. But I do not know how to use Velthari medical technology. I do. Liara had studied many things as part of her royal education, including basic medical treatment. She powered up the medical station and guided Tae-hyun to it. The machine scanned his wound and began its work. Tiny surgical lasers cleaned and closed the gash while injecting healing compounds directly into his tissue. Tae-hyun gritted his teeth against the pain but made no sound. When it was finished, Liara helped him back to the bed. His skin was pale and covered in sweat. Thank you, he said quietly. You saved my life multiple times today. This is the least I can do. She found clean water and made him drink. Now rest. I will keep watch. You should rest too. I will rest when you are better. Tae-hyun smiled slightly. You are stubborn. I learned from the best, Liara replied, surprising herself with the gentle humor in her voice. He fell asleep within minutes, exhausted from blood loss and pain. Liara sat beside him, watching his chest rise and fall. She thought about everything that had happened. Her entire world had collapsed in a matter of hours. Her guards were dead. Her cousin had betrayed her. She was hunted like an animal, but she was alive. Because of this human who she had treated so badly, she studied his face as he slept. The scar on his cheek, the lines around his eyes that made him look older than his years, the jaw that was strong but also somehow gentle. She wondered what he had been like before the war, before he lost his squad, before duty and guilt had carved away his softness. Hours passed. Taehyun's color improved as the medical treatment worked. Finally, Liara allowed herself to rest, curling up on the other bed. She fell asleep thinking that she felt safer here, in this dark maintenance room with a wounded human, than she had ever felt in her palace. She woke to find Taehyun standing at the computer terminal, working with careful concentration. "What are you doing?" she asked, sitting up, looking at the station systems. "I managed to tap into a low-level data feed." His face was grim. Vexiron has taken control of the station. He is broadcasting that the attack was a human terrorist operation that went wrong. He is saying that I was the terrorist and that you died heroically trying to stop me. Liara felt cold fury. He is blaming this on humanity? Yes, it gives him an excuse to call for humans to be expelled from the coalition. And it makes him look like a hero for trying to protect you. Taehyun pulled up another screen. Coalition forces are 6 hours away, but Vexiron has dozens of soldiers searching for us. We cannot hide here forever. What do we do? Taehyun was quiet, thinking. Then his expression changed. We stop hiding. We attack. Attack? There are only 2 of us and you are wounded. Which is why they will not expect it. He brought up a map of the station. Vexiron is using the main security center to coordinate the search. If we can reach it, we can access the communication systems. We can send a message to the coalition forces, tell them the truth. How do we get past his soldiers? By being smart, and by using the fact that they think we are desperate and weak. He pointed to the map. These maintenance tunnels connect to the station's power grid. If we can cause a few strategic power failures, we create confusion. In that confusion, we move. Liara looked at the map, her mind racing. The power grid has manual override controls here, here, and here. If we trigger them in sequence, we can create a cascading failure that looks like a system malfunction. Taehyun looked at her with new respect. You know station engineering? I studied everything about stations and ships. My parents wanted me to understand how our empire's infrastructure works. She smiled slightly. I suppose they did not expect me to use that knowledge like this. They planned carefully. Taehyun explained military tactics and Liara explained the station's systems. They worked together, their different knowledge complementing each other perfectly. You are good at this, Taehyun said at one point. At what? Tactics, strategy. You think clearly under pressure. You would have made a good soldier. Liara felt warmth at the compliment. My people would be shocked to hear that. They see me as just a pretty face for diplomatic functions. Then your people are fools. His voice was serious. You are smart, brave, and strong. Any species would be lucky to have you as their leader. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not with flattery or political calculation. Just honest truth. Liara felt something shift inside her chest. Something warm and frightening. Taehyun, she said quietly, when this is over, if we survive, I would like to know you better. Not as my guardian. As a person. He looked at her for a long moment. I would like that too, princess. Call me Liara, please. Liara, he repeated, and the way he said her name made her heart beat faster. They left the safe room 2 hours later, moving through the maintenance tunnels with careful precision. They reached the first power override point without incident. Liara worked the controls while Taehyun watched for enemies. Done, she whispered. Sector 3 power will fail in 5 minutes. They moved to the second location. Here they encountered a patrol. 2 of Vexiron's soldiers walked the corridor ahead, their weapons ready. Taehyun gestured for Liara to stay back. He moved with silent grace despite his injury. The soldiers never knew what hit them. Within seconds, both were unconscious on the floor. You did not kill them, Liara observed. They are just soldiers following orders, not my enemies. He took their weapons and communication devices. Come on. The second override was more difficult. A group of engineers was working nearby, trying to repair damage from the earlier explosions. Liara and Taehyun had to wait, hidden in the shadows for nearly 30 minutes before the engineers left. Liara triggered the second override. Sector 7 will fail in 3 minutes. They ran for the third location. Behind them, the first power failure hit. Lights went out in several sections of the station. Alarms began to sound. They could hear soldiers shouting, confused by the apparent malfunction. The third override was deep in the station's core, near the main reactor. Security was heavy here. Taehyun studied the patrol patterns while Liara worked on hacking the access codes. "There," she said finally, breaking through the security. "But we only have 30 seconds before the system alerts security." "That is enough." Taehyun created a distraction by triggering a fire alarm in a nearby section. Guards rushed toward the false emergency. They slipped past and reached the override controls. Liara's hands flew over the interface. "This one will cause a cascade. The security center will lose power for at least 5 minutes. "Perfect. Do it." She activated the override. Immediately, warning lights began flashing all over the station. The third power failure was bigger than the others, affecting multiple critical systems. "Now we run," Taehyun said. They sprinted through the corridors as chaos erupted around them. Emergency lighting flickered on and off. Automated systems shut down. Vexiron's coordinated search fell apart as soldiers lost communication and were forced to deal with apparent station-wide emergencies. Taehyun led Liara through the confusion with absolute confidence. He seemed to know every turn, every shortcut. They climbed through maintenance shafts and ran across walkways suspended high above machinery. Finally, they reached the security center. The main power was down just as Liara had planned. Emergency batteries kept basic systems running, but the heavy security doors were unlocked. They entered carefully. The center was empty, abandoned when the power failed. Rows of monitors showed views from cameras all over the station. Most were dark or flickering. Taehyun went straight to the communication console. "Can you bypass the jamming?" Liara studied the controls. "Yes, but it will take time. And once we start transmitting, Vexiron will know exactly where we are." "How much time?" 3 minutes. Maybe 4. Then we will hold them for 4 minutes. He positioned himself at the door, weapons ready. "Do it, Liara." She began to work, her fingers dancing across the controls. Outside, she could hear shouting. Vexiron's forces were coming. "Hurry," Taehyun said quietly. "Almost there." Liara bypassed another security layer. "Got it." The communication system came. "Stop broadcasting, cousin," Vexiron said calmly, as if they were having tea instead of facing each other over weapons. "You are only making this harder for everyone." Liara kept talking into the communication system. "Lord Vexiron is a traitor. He killed Captain Thelmore and the Royal Guards. He is planning to blame humanity for his crimes." Vexiron raised his hand. A dozen soldiers aimed their weapons at Taehyun, who was bleeding from multiple wounds but still standing between Liara and danger. "You can stop this," Vexiron said to Taehyun. "Walk away now. I will let you live. I will even clear your name. You can be the hero who tried to save the princess but failed. Better than dying here for nothing." Taehyun's response was to fire his weapon. The shot went wide as his wounded shoulder made him aim poorly, but it was answer enough. Vexiron sighed. Humans, so predictably stupid. He nodded to his soldiers. "Kill them both!" Before anyone could fire, Liara slammed her hand on a control panel. "I thought you might say that." Every monitor in the security center suddenly displayed the same image. Vexiron's face recorded from earlier. Talking to his co-conspirators, his voice filled the room. "Once the princess is dead, we will blame the humans. The coalition will expel them, and Velthari will return to its proper place as the dominant power." It was all there. His confession, his plans, everything. "I accessed your private communications while setting up the broadcast," Liara said. "This recording is now being transmitted to every coalition ship within range, including the military forces approaching this station. Everyone knows the truth now, Vexiron. You have lost." Vexiron's calm mask shattered. Rage twisted his features. "You think that matters? I control this station. I have an army. Coalition forces are still hours away." He pulled out a personal device and pressed several commands. "I just activated the station's self-destruct sequence. In 5 minutes, this entire place will explode. Everyone dies, including you." Horror filled Liara. "There are thousands of innocent people on this station." "Acceptable losses. Vexiron smiled coldly. My ship is waiting in a private dock. I will escape and tell the Coalition that you activated the self-destruct in a desperate attempt to stop me. I will be the tragic survivor. The hero who tried to save everyone. He turned to leave. Goodbye, cousin. I would have made a better ruler anyway. Stop him, Liara shouted. Taehyun fired, but his wounded shoulder made the shot miss. Vexiron and his guards disappeared through the door. Heavy blast doors slammed shut behind them, sealing Taehyun and Liara inside the security center. Warning lights flashed red. A mechanical voice began counting down. Station self-destruct in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Can you stop it? Taehyun asked, moving to Liara's side. She frantically worked the controls. No. He has locked me out of the main systems. I cannot access the self-destruct controls from here. Can we evacuate the station? Not in 4 minutes. There are too many people. Liara felt tears in her eyes. All those people. They will die because of me. No. Taehyun pulled up a station schematic. Where is the main reactor? 3 levels down, why? The reactor has manual override controls. If we can get there, we can contain the explosion long enough for people to evacuate. But the countdown is only 4 minutes. We cannot reach the reactor, set up containment, and evacuate ourselves in that time. Taehyun looked at her and she saw the answer in his eyes. No, she said, grabbing his arm. There has to be another way. There is not. Someone has to stay at the reactor to maintain the containment. The controls have to be operated manually. Then I will do it. This is my responsibility. You are the princess. Your people need you. The Coalition needs your testimony about Vexiron's crimes. He gently removed her hand from his arm. I am a soldier. This is what soldiers do. Taehyun, please. There is an escape pod 2 corridors from here. I scouted it days ago. It is rated for 1 person. He pulled out a device and pressed it into her hand. This has all my access codes. It will get you to the pod and launch it automatically. I will not leave you to die. He cupped her face with his scarred hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. Listen to me, Liara, you are going to survive. You are going to become the ruler you were meant to be. You are going to change the Coalition and make it better. All those things you talked about in your speech, peace, unity, equality, you're going to make them real. Tears ran down Liara's silver cheeks. I do not want to do any of that without you. You can. You are stronger than you know. He smiled, and it was genuine and warm. I wish I had more time to get to know you. The real you. Not the princess. Just Liara. Station self-destruct in 3 minutes, the mechanical voice announced. You have to go now, Taehyun said. Liara kissed him. It was desperate and fierce and full of all the things she wished she had said earlier. When they broke apart, they were both crying. This is not fair, she whispered. No, he agreed. But this is my choice. And I choose to save you. He pushed her toward the door, which he had managed to unlock. Liara stumbled through, looking back at him one last time. Thank you, she said. For everything. For protecting me even when I did not deserve it. For showing me what real honor looks like. Go, he shouted. Now! Liara ran. Behind her, the blast doors sealed shut. She ran through corridors filled with panicking people, all heading for evacuation points. She wanted to turn back. Every part of her screamed to return to Taehyun. But she kept running because he had given his life to save hers, and she would not make that sacrifice meaningless. She reached the escape pod, used Taehyun's codes to open it, climbed inside. Station self-destruct in 1 minute. Liara sealed the pod and launched. It shot away from the station, spiraling through space. Through the small window, she could see Sanctuary Station in the distance, covered in flickering warning lights. Coalition military ships appeared, their weapons charging, surrounding the dying station. They had arrived just in time to witness the end. Liara activated the pod's communication system. This is Princess Liara. All Coalition ships begin emergency evacuation procedures. There are thousands of civilians on that station. Save everyone you can. The ships moved with military precision. Smaller craft launched, racing toward the station's docking bays. Transport beams began pulling people off the station. Station self-destruct in 10 seconds. Liara pressed her hands against the pod's window, watching helplessly. Please, she whispered to no one. Please let him live. The station's reactor core exploded. But instead of the massive blast that should have destroyed everything within kilometers, the explosion was contained, compressed into a much smaller space. It was still devastating, but most of the station's outer sections survived intact. Taehyun had done it. He had contained the blast. Coalition ships continued evacuating people from the damaged, but not destroyed station. Liara tried to call him on the communication system. Taehyun, answer me, please. There was no response. Just static. One of the coalition ships pulled her escape pod aboard. Crew members opened the pod and Liara stumbled out. A Velthari admiral approached, bowing deeply. Your Highness, thank the stars you are alive. We received your broadcast. We know the truth about Vex Iron. Specialist Taehyun Kang, Liara said urgently. He was at the reactor core. Did you get him? Did your beams find him? The admiral's face fell. Princess, the reactor section. The explosion. No one could have survived. Liara felt her world collapse. Her legs gave out and only the quick reflexes of nearby crew members kept her from falling. She had lost him. The man who had protected her, who had shown her what true courage looked like, who had kissed her with such desperate tenderness just minutes ago. Gone. Your Highness, another officer said, approaching carefully. Lord Vex Iron's ship was intercepted trying to flee. He is in custody. Liara did not care. What did Vex Iron matter? What did any of it matter? Taehyun was dead. She was taken to the medical bay, treated for minor injuries, and given quarters to rest. But she could not rest. She could only sit and stare at nothing, feeling empty. Hours later, a commotion outside her quarters made her look up. She heard shouting. Then the door opened and Daewon Lee rushed in. Princess Liara, he said, breathing hard. There is something you need to know about Taehyun. Liara's heart stopped. What? His sacrifice. It was a calculated risk. While you were in the escape pod, he sealed himself in the reactor core's emergency bunker. It is the most protected section of the entire station, designed to keep engineers alive even during meltdowns. What are you saying? I am saying it was a gamble. He knew that if he could contain the explosion and survive the initial blast, coalition ships would arrive in time to beam him out. Daewon smiled. And he was right. He is alive? Liara could barely say the words. He is in critical condition. The rescue team pulled him out seconds before the bunker failed. He is in surgery now, but the doctors think he will survive. Liara did not remember running, did not remember pushing past crew members and sprinting through the ship's corridors. She only knew that she had to get to him. She burst into the medical wing, startling the staff. Where is he? Where is Taehyun Kang? A human doctor approached. Princess, he is in surgery. You cannot. I will wait. I will wait as long as it takes, and she did. She sat outside the surgical bay for 6 hours. Daewon brought her food that she